Okay, for this video, what we're going to do is we're going to solve a system of equations using substitution. The reason I'm using substitution is because I have a variable that has a coefficient of 1. If all of the numbers in front of my x's and y's, those are the fancy name is coefficient, if all of my x's and y's have numbers in front of them, then I would choose to use elimination. But it's easy to get this y right here by itself because there's a 1 in front of it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to solve this equation for y. And to do that, all I have to do is move the 4x to the other side. So we would have 4x minus 14. Remember that when the negative 4 goes to the other side, it becomes a positive 4x. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and replace y with 4x minus 14. So I'm going to replace this y in the other equation with 4x minus 14. So the 5x plus 3 is not going to change, but we're going to take and replace y with the 4x minus 14 because that is what y is equal to in the other equation. And then we would just say this equals negative 8. So now what we would need to do is we would want to take and distribute our 3 into both of these equations, or into this expression. So we would have 5x plus 12x minus 42. So if I take 3 times negative 14, I end up with negative 42, and this equals negative 8. And now we would simply solve this equation. So we would end up with 17x minus 42 equals negative 8. Add the 42 to both sides. So since they're different signs, we would just subtract. 42 minus 8 gives us 34. And so we can see that if I divide both sides by 17, x equals 2. Remember that when you get to this point, just don't automatically assume that you're finished because you got an answer. Remember that you are looking for two things. I'm going to go ahead and plug it back into this one where y was already solved for. So we would just have y equals 4 times 2 minus 14. So we end up with y equals 8 minus 14, which is negative 6. So if your teacher is okay with it, you can leave it as x equals 2, y equals negative 6. Or if you need to write it as an ordered pair, remember it's always x comma y. So if you needed to write it as an ordered pair, you could just write it as 2 comma negative 6. Remember to check your work. All you have to do is plug your values back into your original equation. It's always a good idea to check just to make sure that you didn't make a mistake, because we all make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. So just make sure that you check it by replacing x with 2 and y with negative 6. So if we checked the first one, we would do negative 4 times 2 plus negative 6, and we would see, does this equal negative 14? And we can see that negative 8 minus 6 is indeed negative 14. So this does work. If we check the second equation, we would just do 5 times 2 since x is 2, plus 3 times negative 6, and we want to ask, does this equal negative 8? And we can see that 10 minus 18 is indeed negative 8, so that does work. So with this, 2 negative 6 makes sense for both equations. It can't be true for just one of them. It does have to be true for both of them. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or other topics you need me to cover, just let me know.